Good morning. Oh, I should say buongiorno. Distinguished guest, welcome to the talk session, Health Technologies, How Science is Transforming Healthcare. I am Akihiko Mori, a science journalist working for Wired Japan. And it is my honor to serve as a moderator for this session with brilliant guests held here at Expo Osaka in the Italy Pavilion and organized by the Italian Institute of Technology. The main goal of this session is bring together experts and innovators to discuss the future of healthcare, a topic of immense global importance. According to the WHO statistics, the number of people aged 60 and older worldwide is projected to increase from 1.1 billion in 2023 to 1.4 billion by 2030, as you know. This demographic shift carries significant implications for public health, including the rise of chronic diseases, functional impairments, and increased healthcare costs. Science and technology play a vital role in fostering early detection and effective treatment for these conditions. Furthermore, an aging population also poses challenges such as potential labor shortages and reduced productivity in the coming years. Italy and Japan, here we are both facing rapid population aging. This is mainly because fewer children are being born here, and people are living longer. Italy is the oldest country in Europe, and the second oldest in the world, while Japan is the oldest globally, with more than 1 in 10 people now aged 80 or older. Our experts will demonstrate how state-of-the-art technology such as humanoid robotics and robotic prostheses, genomics and RNA technologies, nanomedicine, and microscopy techniques represent some of the promising approaches contributing to a more sustainable future. The collaboration between Italy and Japan in these fields not only underscores their mutual commitment to progress, but also reflects a shared dedication to designing a better future society. It is my pleasure to introduce our first esteemed speaker, Mario Andrea Battani, Commissioner General for Italy at Expo 2025 Osaka.
Thank you very much, and welcome to the Italy Pavilion at Expo Osaka 2025. We are going through, during these days, we're going through a very important thematic week for Osaka Expo, the week of health and well-being. And we are very thankful to our partners for having helped us to really put a lot of content every day during this special week of activity. In particular, we're very happy to have with us today our friend Giorgio Metta from the Istituto Italiano di Tecnologia, and we are also very honored to welcome here our friend, Professor Hiroshi Ishiguro from Osaka University. He is the protagonist, I would say, of one of the most important thematic pavilions at Expo, the one that really talks about the future and designing societies of the future, which is the future of life. pavilion that many of you probably visited or would like to visit again. Actually, our pavilion is also really aimed at this idea of designing future societies for our lives, and the answer that we gave is the term art regenerates life. When we say art, we're not just talking of course, culture, music, sculpture, performance arts, which are all present in this pavilion, of course, but we're talking about the action of the human on nature, with the action of the human on society. That is art. So it is also in the word artisan, it is in the name artifact, it is in the name of, I mean, in the end, it follows up to engineering, science, technology, research. This is what we are talking about in our pavilion. The aim of our pavilion is, on one hand, to widen widen the knowledge of Italy in the public, to introduce more about Italian technology and research, but it is also very closely connected to relations, Italy-Japan relations. Because you see, since January 2023, our Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni, and the then Prime Minister, Kishida, have elevated the level of relations between Italy and Japan. So our relation today with Japan is a strategic partnership. And what is a strategic partnership? It is a partnership that really develops bilateral relations in many very important sectors that have been identified in an action plan, which has been signed by our two countries. And one of the issues in this action plan is, of course, cooperation on high technology and on life sciences, so biotechnologies, robotics, all the things that we are talking about today. So as a matter of fact, what we are doing today is, in fact, part of our action plan for our strategic partnership. Today, to talk of health through also the concept of robotics, through the concept of high technology, and we do this thanks to also some of our very important sponsors. For example, Bracco. Bracco is a very important Italian company who is a gold sponsor for this pavilion. And we owe it to Bracco to have our beautiful painting of Ito Mancio in the beginning of our visitor experience. So we owe it to our partners, we owe it to our sponsors, but what we're doing is we're talking about a partnership between Italy and Japan. So we're very happy to have you all here, and I look forward to hearing from all of you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Batani. Shall we moving on to the opening keynote session titled Health Technologies for Accessible and Sustainable Future. Let me introduce briefly the Italian Institute of Technology, IIT. IIT is one of Italy's leading institutions in scientific and technological excellence, with over 1,900 staff members, 32% of whom are researchers from abroad, and 38 startup companies launched. Therefore, IIT's statutory mission is threefold: conducting advanced research to achieve scientific excellence and develop cutting-edge technologies, driving technology transfer to enhance the competitiveness of Italy's production system, and providing higher education through programs dedicated to highly specialized training and education. These elements are closely interconnected. Research generates intellectual property, which drives technology transfer through industrial applications or advancements in healthcare. IIT's overarching goal is to address two of the 21st century's greatest challenges. One is environmental sustainability for Earth care. Second is human health for healthcare. Let me introduce our next speaker, the IIT Scientific Director, Giorgio Metta. His opening keynote will give an overview of the emerging technologies developed at IIT to enhance human health.
Thank you, dear Commissioner. Very glad to be here. Aki, many thanks for your introduction. Hiroshi, also pleased to have you here. Thank you for being here. And I would like also to thank all the researchers that are here that are gonna make this session live, with content. I'll be kind of doing the little history about IIT and covering the main topics without entering too much into the details. Okay, IIT, a research foundation that's been created in 2003 to foster technology. So our first mission is certainly that of making or carrying out research to then have possibility of transferring that research to the industrial sector. And this the mission that is explicit there comes actually from our statute. So it's something we had to do because it's, the entire IIT, the raison d'etre of IIT is that one. The size of IIT, just to give you an idea for those who don't know it, is we have now 12 centers across Italy, besides Genoa, where we have our headquarters. These are a few numbers. The number of people, for instance, it reached almost 2,000 to date. We run a network and, let's say, laboratories of about 50,000 square meters where we carry out our research in 4 main fields that are robotics, nanomaterials, the life science, which is the main topic today, and also computational sciences, which is nonetheless a main topic these days because of AI and the hype about AI mostly. We have 2 missions that are in a sense, addressing societal challenges. It was already mentioned that Japan and Italy share this population that is getting older every day and will get older in the coming decades. It's going to be one of the main factors affecting, in a sense, also our GDP from here to the end of the century. And therefore, we chose specifically to take care of the planet. This is not a topic today, but it's clearly important. And through sustainability, let's say, activities and research towards sustainability and healthcare. Very quickly, we took this mission and in a sense, represented with 5 main programs. There are 2 that are very important that is going to be discussed today. One is the RNA Technologies program. It's a flagship with hundreds of researchers that are working together at IIT and also trying to establish links with other institutes, universities, to make sure we can have an impact in developing, for instance, new drugs. That's one of the goals. The second, let's say, program that has an impact in healthcare is called Technologies for Healthy Living. Here we have robotics, for instance, and the use of robotics for rehabilitation, prosthetics, and devices to measure our health status and therefore be able to predict how to act and be more effective in delivering certain therapeutics, for instance. So those 2 are going to be discussed by our researchers today. We said about the elderly population, and this is a plot that I copied from the Lancet. And it's interesting because it shows the fertility rate, how many children we make per couple. And if you see that 2.1 is a critical number to maintain constant population, and you see the situation, I mean, researchers actually went measuring the situation in different countries in 2021 and trying to predict what's going to happen by the end of the century. And what you see is that basically the entire world is flattening around 2.1. South Korea, Japan, Italy are probably the yellow dots there, so well below 2.1. Other countries, Africa, is still at this time above, so the population is growing, but is, the prediction is it will flatten also in that case. Therefore, what we have, at least in our country, and I'm pretty sure the situation in Japan is very similar, a decline of workforce, because we're living longer, but typically we're retiring at a certain point. We wish that everybody retires in good health. And this has an impact. By 2040, at least in Italy, it's been estimated to have an impact that is approximately 15% of our GDP. This is a huge number. It's about 300 billion euros. Also, because the population is getting older, there's an impact on the healthcare system. Not to mention retirement plans and all that, but healthcare going to cost 3% more. 3% of the GDP is an additional roughly 60 billion. So these are the numbers. I think it's quite shocking. We have a duty as researchers, as scientists, to find solutions. One solution is certainly healthcare in general. The more we're active, the more we can be independent, the better also for the healthcare system, for the national healthcare system. The other aspect is technology can help in sustaining a population that is getting older via, for instance, robotics, assistance, etc. If everything fails, robotics can also help in industry, and therefore we can sustain our productivity because we have helps that can be cognitive, AI these days, but also robotics. I mean, our manufacturing sector can actually profit for high automation. This is another number. It's called the support ratio. It basically shows how many kids, in a sense, can help us in the future. And you see the numbers go down, while in the 50s and 60s, we could count on 6 people per, for each of us. Now we can count in 1.5 persons for each of us. So this is not going to work. This is very clear. And these are the numbers we were mentioning earlier. The global population over 65 is going to grow more than double, and the support ratio, as I say, is going below 2. So, you know, not even our children will be able to support us as parents, and this has an impact in calculated shortage of workforce. That's worldwide, and those numbers are extremely big. And you see it very easily by 2030 surpasses 0.6 trillion. So it's going to have an impact very quickly. And those numbers are predicted to grow very, very quickly because, as we saw, the numbers are going down in terms of amount of workforce. How can science change the outlook? This looks dramatic, but it's not dramatic. It's the end effect, or the fact also that we live in longer. Therefore, we have an opportunity for science to have an impact. And very quickly, clearly, AI is transforming how things are being made, and AI is also accelerating science. There's a statement by Eric Schmidt, former Google CEO. And of course, the science of today becomes the technology of tomorrow. So this is another famous idiom of Edward Teller, and a physicist. Let me skip this one. you know, the fact that AI has already an impact is probably witnessed by the Nobel Prize last year for chemistry that went to, not to someone working in a lab, but to people that built models of proteins or models that predict the folding of proteins, the 3D structure of proteins. So this is quite a paradigmatic change, and perhaps we have to reason on how to, in a sense, capture this change, making sure our science benefits from these results. This is an example that is going to be presented later by some of our researchers, drug discovery via, or drug optimization via simulations. There's more, because now we can also do design from scratch. So we can figure out RNAs that can interact optimally with proteins, and therefore blocking effects of certain proteins, in this case, proteins related to cancer. Again, this may be too technical for the time being. The other topic that I think is very important is robotics, humanoids in particular. There's a predicted market to grow well beyond a few hundreds billion euros by 2035, I think. So something that is growing very quickly. And robotics can become prosthetics. This is an easy application. This can be done today, basically. You see here a control prosthetic arm that utilizes the residual, let's say, activation of the muscles, so the amputee, to actually control movement of several degrees of freedom. Or also robots that can interact naturally with people, and this is an experiment with interaction with kids that are being diagnosed with autism, and this is a training protocol that helps them and having a good outlook and over a training program that lasts several months. And what do we need? I'd like to conclude with a message. We need money, we need investment, we need to believe in technology. This is a collection of data that comes from the investment in technology, investment in research and development, and the growth of GDP. This is historical. You see, it's the past 20 years. Who invested? The countries that invested more are the countries that are getting most out of technology. Their GDP is growing faster. So this is a good message for science, showing impact. And perhaps we had to claim it very strongly. The science has to be funded because it's our future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Shall we moving on to the keynote session called The Future of Humanoid Robotics Among Cognitive and Avatar Robots. The central theme of Expo 2025 Osaka is designing a future society for our lives. It makes clear that advanced technology will play a pivotal role in shaping what lies ahead. Among them, humanoid robots stand out, a rapidly growing field driven by increasing demand in healthcare, elder care, and industrial automation. Today, we will explore this topic and the future of humanoid robotics with two distinguished speakers. Giorgio Metta is a scientific director of IIT and has been coordinating the development of the iCurve robot for more than a decade. The iCurve is like a child-sized humanoid capable of learning from experience, serving as a standard platform for research in artificial intelligence. Today, over 50 iCurve robots are in use worldwide in research labs across countries including Japan, China, Singapore, Germany, Spain, the UK, and the US. Under his supervision, IIT researchers have also developed the avatar and cognitive robots designed for direct integration into healthcare system. Hiroshi Ishiguro is distinguished professor at the Intelligent Robotics Laboratory and a professor at Osaka University, where he is also the director of the Intelligent Robotics Laboratory. Additionally, he leads the Advanced Telecommunications Research Institute International, ATR. Ishiguro is famous for creating a lifelike android that closely resembles humans, including robotic replicas of himself. Beyond academia, Ishiguro is the CEO of Avita, a startup founded in June 2021, specializes in the development of the commercialization of avatars. He is the creator of one of three thematic areas defining in Expo 2025. Okay, let's welcome Giorgio Metta, a scientific director at IIT, and Hiroshi Ishiguro. So, I believe we have a presentation from you, both of you. So, who's the first?
You choose. Yeah.
Okay. Then, how much time do I have? It's 7 minutes or something?
Maybe 10, 5 or 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do I have my slide?
So I think
No?
it's the first is
We need to ask.
Meta. Okay. Okay.
I can use my PC. How do you think? Oh, yes, yes.
You're here. And I think, yeah.
Okay, so let me quickly explain my work. So actually, I'm building the avatars. So these days, I'm focusing on the avatar technologies. It is not just a simple remote control robot, but if we combine with the AI technologies, so we can develop the very human-friendly, the very easy, very useful avatars for many kinds of peoples. So anyways, I'm doing so many things, but everything is for the avatar development. Okay, and this is my history, but I'm gonna skip this slide. But what I want to say here is, I launched my avatar project 25 years ago. Still, that we are improving the robot performance, and then recently, thanks to the large language models, they finally we could have the conversational avatar, the conversational robots. Now, that we can develop the more human-like robots. And if you come to my pavilion, you can talk with my avatars, right? Right. So, okay. And actually, he is reading almost all my books, and then he can answer any kind of questions. And if I want, I can remotely control this robot, right? So I can just send my intention to this robot, and then the robot behaves like me, right? So this is very convenient. And by using these technologies, I want to create the human avatar symbiotic societies. That is the purpose. That is why I'm studying. I'm running the very big the government R&D project in the universities, and then that is why I'm running my startup companies. Okay, so anyway. This is my first avatars, and I have improved the avatars a lot. And this is my copies, and of course, we can have this kind of cute robot avatars, and then we can use the avatars in a metaverse world, right? So, and by using these technologies, I'm running the biggest R&D project in Japan. Supported by the Japanese government. It's called the Moonshot, right? And the Moonshot has the 7 goals originally, and the first goal is for mind. It's it is for realizing the avatars. Okay? And so we want to create this kind of the futures. So this is very important. As Giorgio mentioned, right? So we're going to have a serious problem of labor shortage in the future, especially in Japan. Right, within 50 years, we're going to lose the 30% of labor. Right? So, that is a serious problem. We need to solve that kind of problem by using robots and AI and avatars, right? So we want to create this kind of future society. Anyone, including elderly and people with disabilities, will be able to freely participate in various activities with abilities beyond the ordinary people who are expanding their physical, cognitive, and perceptual abilities using a large number of avatars. Right? Anyone will be able to work and study anytime, anywhere, minimize commuting to work, and have plenty of free times. So this is the purpose. Then we have conducted a lot of field experiments so far, right? And then in the companies, right? So I'm providing the computer graphics avatars, and actually, we are running the very this is a serious business, right? So this company is using our avatars for selling the life insurance, and the convenience stores also using our avatars, right? So I really think we can, solve the labor shortage problems with avatar technologies in our futures in Japan and Italy both. Okay. So then I hope to have a more tight collaboration with the Italian researchers. Thank you.
So we're going to switch to George's presentation.
Yeah, I didn't know that it was only a few minutes, so it's a bit longer, too many slides, but I'll take care of that. By, yeah, very quickly. I think similarly to what Ishiguro was saying, we wanted to create robots that can be useful and be interacting with us. There are two issues there, or two problems to be solved technically. One is how to manage the physical interaction with the robot, so how the robot can be safe in interacting with humans. The other one is more a distant interaction where the robot understands what you want to do, understands your gestures, understands your requests, and in a sense cooperates, as is shown in this image, which by the way is taken from one of the few movies where the robots are nice to people, because typically ends up in disaster, but this one is the Bicentennial Man. I mean, the movie is inspired by a story of Isaac Asimov, but it is made very nicely where robots are indeed collaborating with that type of attitude. What we've done was create our own humanoid. It took a few years to design, and a European project to actually fund it. We call it the Ferrari of robotics, but in a sense, it's a bit of a joke. The idea was that the robot is a bit like a Formula One car. So it runs from one Grand Prix and then breaks, and you had to fix it. And it's basically the story of robotics is a bit like that. Apart from the industrial robots that clearly are designed to last. So here we're talking about a robot that was designed for conducting research. Has a nice feature that I think is useful for interacting with humans is tactile sensing. So the entire body is covered with sensors that can actually feel contact with a person. So besides vision and the usual typical sensing modalities, audio, etc., this one is also covered with tactile sensor. And we wanted to, therefore, study the interaction with humans. We started, or one of the topics, as I say, is understanding how the robot impacts the interaction with us. We use cognitive neuroscience methods, and in particular, very simple EEG or reaction times, measuring gaze, and use this information to try to understand how the robot affects our perception and what is perhaps, let's say, how to fine-tune the behavior of the robot in such a way that it's optimally adapted to us. This is an example where we basically had a robot that is more or less social in the sense that it looks at you, and now these days it's very simple to find your face, find your eyes, and have the robot looking exactly in your eyes. And what we shown is that depending on the conditions, the robot can actually influence your reaction times. So the whole experimental setup is a bit of a game where you're playing against the robot, and it's being shown that the robot can be made to influence your performance. Your performance dramatically, you're slower, you make more mistakes in the game simply because the robot is looking at you. So this is interesting because the moment you're designing robots for performance, like you want a robot for a factory floor, maybe you don't want the robot to look at you because it's distracting. It costs you time. Your brain requires time to process that information, and therefore you make more mistakes. In the factory floor, you don't want to make mistakes. So but this is interesting though, because it's a whole field of study on how to make robots that are optimally efficient. These results from the EEG signals show basically the same things, that in fact, certain areas of the brain are activated, and these results that we checked with the literature are activated specifically when the robot is looking at you, and this difference causes or it's hypothesized to create this slower decision time. As I mentioned earlier, these robots are also used in social contexts, like interaction with the ASD kids, and this is a program that can be extended, and theoretically it can work also for older kids, and we have a project now that is actually exploring that possibility. This is a video, just an excuse to show you another video, but it's basically one of the scenarios where the robot is playing with kids and helping them learn how to sequence actions to obtain certain results, which surprisingly, autistic kids don't develop that capability autonomously, but they improve if they go through a teaching program like is shown here. Let me skip the actual results. The other aspect, as I mentioned, is interaction, physical interaction with the robot. Here you see a video where the robot is doing something complicated and feeling the interaction with the researcher here that is trying to unbalance the robot. And because of the sensing capabilities and the ability to process external forces, the robot can maintain balance in this case. This is kind of basic control architecture that is needed for creating physical interaction with the robot. We wanted, though, also to collect information or to be able to interact with the robot in such a way that we impersonate the robot. And the device that you see there is a sort of a simplified exoskeleton that can be worn by one of the researchers in this case. The researcher sees what the robot is seeing and can basically guide the robot through a learning program. Now, these are whatever movements, but if you do a proper set of movements and have the robot solve a task, then the robot can copy that task. And this is shown through whatever, an AI architecture. This representation just shows one of the modern big neural networks that are actually implementing AI systems. And the moment you remove let's say, the training system, and you have the robot, in this case it was in fact at a complete different location, so the person remotely managed to tell the robot to do certain things. In this case, you wave at the robot, and the robot learned that it has to wave back, because this is what he learned through the guided interaction. You wave, or you say to the robot, come here, and the robot actually moves towards the person. This is completely autonomous. So this is what an avatar system trained on certain tasks can actually reproduce autonomously. This was a demo that was made live at an event, and therefore it's also quick enough. I mean, it can learn a new task in a matter of minutes. So this is to say, or to conclude, avatars, we're working mostly on these two big topics, the social interaction and the physical interaction with the robot. And these two components are basically, I think, the pairing very well with what Professor Ishiguro showed, because you know, at that point, we have all the pieces of the technology that can actually make this idea of humans and robots living together come true.
Thank you so much. Shall we move into a discussion time? So may I ask you a question for Ishiguro-san? Ishiguro-san. So, so could you tell me, how did you come up with the idea to create a more human-like robot and why do you think it is essential for realizing a symbiotic society?
Well, actually, you know, well, human has a different way for the evolutions comparing with animals. That is the technologies. You know, from the beginning, the human is tightly coupled with the technologies. Therefore, you know, we could have this kind of very powerful societies comparing with other animals. So, you know, we cannot separate human and the technologies. So that is the basic ideas, right? And then, you know, when I have studied, okay, let me go back about my motivation to create a very human-like robots. So when I studied computer science in the universities, I was interested in AI, of course. You know, the computer is for the AI, right? And then, you know, I saw that AI need to have bodies. So AI, and how, you know, AI can gather the data by itself, right? So AI need to have a body for having their own experience, right? Therefore, you know, I interested in robotics. Okay, but when I have created the first robot, you know, we had a big, serious discussion about appearance. Okay, so what's the meaning of a human-like appearance, right? Then, you know, I have decided to create a very human-like robot. But at the same time, you know, we were quite interested in the human itself, how we can understand the humanities by creating the robots. We thought that the robot is going to be a very important research tools for understanding the humanities. But at the same time, of course, a robot can be very useful, right, for our, you know, our future societies. Therefore, you know, and so we and the humans, so we are improving the performance by accepting technologies, by using a robot. But at the same time, you know, by using a robot, we are trying to understand the human itself, right? So therefore, the humanoid robot and human-like robot is very important for us in two meanings: engineering meanings and scientific meanings.
Thank you. Can you hear about your ideas?
Well, actually, it's very similar. I think we grew up with this idea of AI and this fascination for the creation of intelligence inside a machine. I mean, it's not that we invented it, because it all started in '56 with the famous Dartmouth College meeting. But I think when I later was at a university, there was a first possibility to actually have a full robot guided by vision and connecting, you know, feedback loops to make sure the robot did what you wanted to do. So, and the extension to humanoids was almost natural. I remember a couple of things. One, indeed, there's even evidence, if you want, from neuroscience that the human form influences quite a lot how we learn and, in a sense, the structure of our learning. And the second one is that by using a robotic computational model, we can have a better understanding of how the brain works in various ways. I mean, not that eventually AI is very similar to humans, because we know it's not. But I think ideas are connecting, and there are certainly neuroscientific results that use computation quite a lot to explain what's happening in the brain. And there are robots that are working very nicely because they use biologically plausible models of computation.
Thank you. How about the appearance of your humanoid? So Ishiguro-san said he creates a more human-like robot to understand the human. So how about your humanoid?
Well, in our case, I wanted to have some human shape, but you know, the technology is difficult, so you have to focus on something. So I focused more on, I needed, for instance, and I wanted to have movable cameras, something that you don't see much in today's robots, but it was for me very essential to study the possibility of using gaze to tell something to another person. So in the interaction becomes essential that the robot can actually move, have a movable gaze. We wanted sophisticated hands to be able to gesture, but also to be able to manipulate objects in sophisticated ways. Of course, we didn't achieve any of human dexterity because it's very difficult technologically, but in a sense, that was the direction. So the human shape is kind of simplified in our case, but it was, you know, a matter of convenience for the lack of better technology.
Similar things are, we can see the very similar things. We need to focus on something, right? So we are focusing on the communications, interactions. Therefore, you know, we are building the very human-like robots, but we are not focusing on so much about the manipulations and the bipedal mechanism. Right? So we cannot do everything, right?
We wish, but
Yeah, therefore, I think we need to collaborate more, right? So
yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so next question is about important application. So one of the most important perspective in thinking about artificial intelligence and robotics is how they can support an aging population, as you mentioned the presentation. So how would that kind of future look like?
So my case is the avatars, right? So you know, if we provide the avatars for the elderly can have a chance to work. So for example, in my company is providing the computer graphics avatars for the convenience stores, and the elderly is living in a local areas. Right? Handicapped people, they are, they're working with avatars in a convenience stores. Right, so that is the power of the avatars, right? So I really hope to solve the labor shortage problem by providing avatars. The another possibility is what I want to do. I want to pursue is the collaboration with the foreign countries. Okay, so the problem in Japan, so we cannot open the 24 4 hours, open the convenience store 24 hours. It's almost impossible. We don't have, the people to work in the midnight. But if, for example, Italian people use the avatars, right? So it's a daytime, but in Japan it's a midnight, right? So they can have the jobs in the daytimes by using avatars. The convenience store is just one example. There are so many conversational services, so many the things we can do by using intelligent avatars, right? So even if they cannot speak in Japanese, then we can use the simultaneous interpretation functions of avatars, and then the similar things that happens. Japanese can work in Italy, right? So this kind of the international labor market is going to be very important, right? So we can help each other more.
Can you share your ideas?
There's a bit of a trade-off, I think, with the level of technology that we have now and what is needed. So, for instance, robots autonomous robots working in a factory for manufacturing objects will be a nice dream, but they don't work yet at that level. Unless for repetitive tasks, very well pre-programmed, very well defined, but they don't have the flexibility of human workers. Therefore, I think the introduction is probably going to be gradual, and we'll see some of the technology percolating into society. I mean, the convenience store is a very good example because basically doable now. The moment you have to assemble very complicated objects by using robots, it's very difficult. Even if you have an avatar robot, it's very difficult to control it, to do very sophisticated dexterous manipulation tasks. So I see probably a technology that gets into the market with various stages, and these stages are determined by the quality of or the performance of the technology. We shouldn't be making the same mistake we did with autonomous cars. One good example of a technology that was, in a sense, launched ahead of time, and then you see the limitations. I mean, the robot taxis sometimes are very good, very nice, but they are pathetically slow, and they don't get in the place you want them to get, simply because they cannot do a U-turn, because that's forbidden by the system. So we had to be very careful with the introduction of technology. So I can see the robots in certain applications, and those may actually create enough market for the next level, and then the next level, and eventually we will see, a robotized society.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, well, actually, we are accepting the many kind of robots already. For example, the vacuum cleaners. The finally vacuum cleaner became a robot. So, this is a kind of a step-by-step approach. And then, I hope the robot technology will help us in the future. Will solve the problems of many, we're going to have many serious problems and how we can care about the elderlies, right? So, for example, right? So then we're going to use more robots.
So I'm a science journalist, so sometimes I write about robotics. So it's quite interesting. Readers always talk about job replacement by robotics, but the researchers always talk about symbiotics. So what makes it different? What do you think about this?
Well, I think always, we are changing the human jobs as we accept the new technologies. And always human is running the new technologies, having the better jobs.
That's true.
Right? So that is the human history. Okay, so definitely we're going to accept more robots and AI, and then we're going to have more better jobs for as humans.
Yeah.
Right? So I think we don't need to worry about that. Right? So if we can increase the productivities by accepting AI and robots, so we can have a more better society and more better life, definitely.
We have to, given the numbers that we saw, I mean, it's a serious problem. So for Italy, a country like Italy now has 50-something million inhabitants, whereas half the size of Japan in terms of population. And we're going to be lacking by 2040, which is basically tomorrow, 3.7 million workers. And this is just a projection of the number of people that are retiring from here to 2040. And they're not replaced by young people because we don't have enough young people to replace them. And we cannot start having more children because they will take 25 years before they enter the job market. So there's no solution but robotics.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much for brilliant speakers. Okay, so we're going to moving on to a discussion titled "Bringing Excellence in Science and Industry." The main difference between state-of-the-art research and innovation lies in the pace of addressing real-world problems like aging. The former focused on expanding the boundaries of knowledge often generates solutions over the long term. In contrast, the latter prioritize the practical implementations in the short term, particularly to address the specific issues and the market demands such as those in healthcare. Consequently, partnership between research centers and companies can accelerate the translation of the advanced science and technology into market-ready solutions. IIT places a strong emphasis on collaborating with companies on a specific research project to create new products and value chains. In this session, we will explore IIT's approach to technology transfer and hear a success story about its collaboration with Nikon Instruments. This partnership successfully translated advanced microscopy research into a new product that has made significant contributions to the field of medical biology. So we welcome Fabrizio Tubercini, Head of Industrial Innovation Technology Transfer Director, Giuseppe Vidocimini, Principal Investigator of Molecular Microscopy and Spectroscopy Laboratory, IIT, and Ryu Nakamura, NLP Designing Development Technology Solution Sector Healthcare Business Unit, Nikon Corporation. So should I say Nikon or Nikon? Whichever, okay. Nikon, yeah, okay, thank you. All right, so this session, I lead this session with questions, okay? So questions for Visidomini, sorry.
No problem.
In an aging society, how can microscopy contribute to addressing related challenges?
Aki, we have another guest.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Alessandro Mayoshi, Innovation Hub Director, Black. Sorry, I'm very sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, first, good morning to everybody, and thanks to be here, and thanks to give me this opportunity. So, yeah, you asked me what we can do in the context of an aging society. So, basically, living in an aging society means to face with many new disease. I mean, thinking about progress and complex disease like cancer or neurodegeneration. And when thinking about this disease, what about the causes of this disease? So typically, this disease come from the fact that all the biomolecular processes that are occurring in our body every second has been misregulated. So there are some alteration of that. So it's clear that if we want to understand why this disease happens, and most importantly, how to cure this disease, we definitely need to understand how this biomolecular process occur in our body. And that's a very difficult challenge, because you have to think that, I mean, in a single cell, you have more than 1 million of molecules that are doing something for you. So, and these molecules are really tiny objects, so they are 1 nanometer in size, so 1 billion of meter. So, and these molecules just around, interact each other, changing structure. So, and then you have to think that one cell is not your body. Your body is much more cell. And they build up a network. They are really heterogeneous. So it's clear that we need a technology that is able to investigate such a biomolecular process inside, either in your body, at least inside a living cell or a living small animal. So, and that's exactly what microscopy can do for you. So microscopy, and specifically light microscopy, is probably the only imaging system, but anyway, instrumentation that allows you to observe such a biological process inside the cell without perturbing them. So it's clear that that can be really powerful to be able to understand this process and to understand the cause of many diseases and then find a cure. So, and this is well known by our community. So there was a lot of development in the context of microscopy. I just want to mention one that is probably the most important one that has been also awarded by some Nobel Prize. That is what is called super resolution microscopy. So when you are dealing with an optical microscope, I mean, even if you enter in a room with such a very complex system, the physics behind is not much different from the hand you have this lady's hand is in hand, so from a mobile phone. So you have a camera, you have lenses, and you create an image. But I may say, okay, so there is a problem that is called diffraction. So, and typically due to this physical law, you cannot observe very big structure, but you are restricted to 100 nanometer in size. So again, 1 nanometer is 1 billion of meter. And your molecules are much smaller. So you need some new technology. And that's what super resolution is doing, is to basically provide you a sort of boost to your microscope to really understanding this molecule, to visualize this molecule. And that's been done simply by the fact that people start to switch to a new paradigm. So typically when you make a picture, you try to understand the structure in your picture. But if, in the case of microscopy, as I told you, it's really interesting to observe the molecule. So this super resolution technique start to observe the sample molecule by molecule. So that was, let's say, the starting phase when I arrived, for example, at the Italian Institute of Technology. So we thought, okay, what we can do better? So what we can do better? And then we thought, okay, why not also, instead of analyze molecule one by one, we try to analyze the photon that the molecule emit one by one. So that's what we do at the Italian Institute of Technology. So basically, we start a new imaging paradigm that is called single photon microscopy. And so getting access to this, and obviously this behind there is a huge technology so that we develop also in partnership with Nikon. And so what we do, we collect light from the sample, photon by photon, with a lot of signature, with a lot of spatial and temporal signature. And then again, as been mentioned already before, we have now artificial intelligence. So we give this data set to a different algorithm, and we are able to reconstruct the sample in all the structure, but most important, we are able to see the dynamic of this sample, so the dynamic of every single molecule. So just to conclude, so microscopy is essential for the aging society because what we want to do is understanding the cause of many neurodegenerative disease. For example, we have different projects in studying what is called liquid phase separation, which is fundamental to understand disease like LS or Alzheimer. So this, thanks to microscopy, we want to, from one side, to predict the disease, so to understand the causes. From the other side, we want to diagnose it, and ultimately, if it's really necessary, also to find a treatment for that, thanks to microscopy.
Thank you so much. So, Nakamura-san, sorry, yes. Could you share us your impression for this collaboration?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Jose, thank you. Thanks so much. Good scientific talk. Okay. Yeah. Everything was well done. The collaboration with IIT. I remember. I met you. How many years ago? 7 or 8 years ago. long collaboration. But sometimes I feel the not a big problem, but a small dilemma, because the final target of our collaboration is the same, to produce the new system, microscopic system. But sometimes the way to the goal is slightly different, because creating a product market is our mission, Nikon mission. But creating a research market, opening research market is your target, your mission. So sometimes I feel the timeline or the time schedule is slightly different. Always Nikon is very slow. The IIT is very fast. But sometimes it's a dilemma for me.
So could you tell me a bit about how do you overcome the dilemma?
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Can you do it?
Yeah. It's a good question. And difficult to say, but okay. They once decided the production line or production vector, it is very, very difficult to change in the company. But on the other hand, they are making the many the possibility. So if we can take the another possibility or a different possibility to catch up, I think it will be the future hint of development. So this is the one way to clear my dilemma.
Thank you. Okay, so Tibertini, so can you describe your role as a cultural mediator between the company and the research institution?
Thank you. Well, normally we try to explain what we do, which is translation from science towards the market, being between. And so this is why we call ourselves sometimes cultural mediators, because we need to talk to science and understand and pass on to science the needs of companies, which are also deadlines and commitments and market needs. And at the same time talk to corporations and try to translate for them that research is a tentative, is not a certainty. So is a path that we do together to go from one very good strong point of basic research to an applied research, and then maybe if we are lucky and strong enough to product. So being in the middle, it depends also on what kind of science you're talking about. Now today we are focusing on a particular kind of science, but obviously microscopy is different from life sciences, different from robotics. So also the time to go from one end to the other one may be very different. And my accelerator, not depending also on external kind of scenarios. Now, when we had COVID a few years ago, everybody was focusing on RNA, so it became very popular also, that kind of science, and everybody was interested in investing in that, because also where you put focus on one hand and money on the other hand, you're going to get results. So it's always a good mix of both things. And our role, which is the second mission of the Istituto Italiano di Tecnologie, is to transfer as much the technology our researchers have in their labs towards some sort of market, or approach the markets in order to understand what are the better needs. What often happens is that we have solutions to problems we don't know, because we have knowledge applied to certain solutions which are born in the curiosity of the researcher, and then when they match corporations, they understand where the market is heading, and how we can also sometimes a little bit switch or pivot in order to match those needs, even if at the beginning that wasn't the original goal of the researcher, or not the only goal of the researcher. So that's where we stand.
So, can you share your ideas about a role of this collaboration?
Okay, so
apologies
thank you.
for the introduction.
No problem. I'm here in any case, so good. So I would just to share some of the experience we have done as a Bracco with the Italian Institute of Technology in developing research projects, generally speaking, in different areas, of course, of this technology. But today, I think we would like to just put our attention on one of the last innovation we have added, and together with the Italian Institute of Technology. This is the first time we, publish at the end this concept and this platform that is the results of a collaboration of 3 years, more or less, of research and development of digital technologies in order to support the collaboration within clinical research activities. And this is one way also in which we believe we can change some things for future of the healthcare, because collaboration remain one of the most important concepts that we should never forget. And so we need to collaborate among different organizations that are doing clinical research. We require some common tools, some common standards, some ways to exchange information that are private by definition. And so we need some specific solutions in order to be able to collect the information that are distributed or spread out in the world. And so we designed a platform trying to help clinical research in this direction. So enabling the possibility to develop common protocols without any barrier that is based on geographical location among these centers. And there is a standardization of the data that maintain a certain level of interoperability that at least is at the top of European guidelines regarding how data should be used. And at the same time, we are opening the platform to introduce a lot of concept associated to artificial intelligence algorithms. There is no any limitations about the complexity of these algorithms. It depends on how the computational power is distributed into the network, because at the end of the day, this platform is an edge computing platform. So it means that any member of this network that we are building up in these days has a certain kind of computational power at their home. So in this way, they become an edge in this platform, and then some part of the calculation are locally done at their edge. And this is needed in order to preserve ownership of the data and to preserve also the privacy on the data. So at the end, I think it's with this platform we can provide some value for all those institutions that are interested to collaborate in many different ways. I mean, among them in a freely way. So there is no any limitations in terms of possible use. IIT is now the Italian Institute of Technology is maintaining the server, the server of and the center of this network. And so I think that we can connect anyone, even in Japan, if there is someone that want to enter in this network in order to collaborate with some other European members. So I think it's an interesting opportunity for all of us. So the platform, the name of the platform is Hippocrate, as you said here in the slide. So it's an infrastructure for privacy-preserving orchestration of clinical research for trustworthy and explainable AI, because also the platform can manage inference on local data without any exchange of data. So it can do a lot of things. So I think it may be an interesting opportunity to share this information to also Japanese research organizations that can enter actively in collaborating in this platform.
Thank you. So at this point, I'd like to back to Vito Simini. So what has been the competitive advantage of working closely with Nikon for this time?
Yeah, so
regarding the comments that we shared.
Yeah, so first of all, I have to say, as been already mentioned, that was very long collaboration with Nikon that started even before I joined IIT. I also like to give the credit to the person, Professor Alberto Diaspro, that started this collaboration, which in 2014 bring to the opening of an imaging center in Genova, the Italian Institute of Technology, which I think that was one of the first examples of joint lab with IT, and I think that was a positive example. So, I mean, that's when I joined the IT, I was pretty focused on basic research. So, I mean, you know, we are doing research, and I think that without basic research, there is no technology transfer, I may say. So that's something that I always like to say. And then after conducting this research that has been a grant from the European community, I was lucky to be in this environment and to immediately, thanks to the Nikon collaboration, think about, okay, so I did this basic research, so what next? And really that was a sort of serendipity story, because really after 4 years, we came out with, from this basic research, this photoresolved microscopy that I mentioned you before, to a real product that is called Spark. So 4 years. So that's really a short time scale. So and the beauty is that I'm traveling a lot. I'm going to a lot of conferences, visiting a lot of research institute. And when you go into the research institute, that you go into the microscopy lab and you see an instrument that you participate in the invention, that's really amazing to know that these people are using your research, the research of the IIT and the research in collaboration with Nikon, to make new discovery. So that's what drove me to the next step. So, so for example, here in Osaka, I know that there are 2 Spark systems, and Spark is the name of this product. So, and all around the world, there are already 200 microscopes of that. So, and this is in 4 years. So I think that really the big advantage of this collaboration is to really have, from my side, the ability to concentrate on my research. So, and sometimes, you know, we are research, and sometimes we do science also for ourselves. So that happens. So you spend some time maybe to solve a problem that is only in your mind, and having the possibility to collaborate with a company give you a sort of perspective and a balance. So which is super important, especially for me. So I get lost somehow in detail that maybe are not really useful. But collaborating with Nikon, really that has the opportunity to speak with customer, to really have a worldwide view of what really is necessary. Well, let's be back to the context of disease. So what is the technology that is really necessary? So it's something that somehow for a physicist or an engineer like me, sometimes I get lost. And this collaboration, I think that the main point is really be able to give this compromise between basic research and the rigors of doing research, but also having some perspective, clear perspective of why you are doing and when this will be, when your research will come really useful for the community.
Thank you. And you have deep knowledge, so can you share your ideas?
Yes, but sometimes I think his idea is sometimes sometimes, no. There's a very, sometimes a bit difficult to understand for Nikon designers because his idea is super nice, but sometimes too much. Not too much, but it's not so easy to break down his idea to product level. For instance, his own software is very nice, but for me or for Nikon, sometimes it's not so friendly to all customers. So this is one of the examples how to break down his idea or his technology to user-friendly product. It's not so easy. It's not so easy. Yeah, but it's the company mission. Yeah.
Thank you. So can you share some ideas?
Well, I think something was mentioned by Alessandra and also Giuseppe. One of the main things to focus on here is that today we have at the table 2 large corporations. One is a Japanese corporation, Nikon, who has been in a long-standing relationship with IIT. And we are very honored of that because it's not easy to cooperate with international corporations for anybody. And to have a long-standing cooperation, it means that there is a strong relationship. And this is what we want to build. And with Bracco, the same. We have a strong relationship that we want to enhance even more because they are closer to us. So I think the message is that when you have, as also Professor Ishiguro was saying, a good idea, a strong idea, and then will help the technology, then you will find partners to go ahead with. And I think that today we represent the chance that also our institution can actually approach this future with its own technology with the right partners. And you always find the right partner along the path when the idea is strong enough. So I think this is a very good, strong message to take home today.
Yeah, so I think that in principle, the collaboration between research organizations and companies, it's fundamental from the company perspective in terms of maintaining their pipeline of innovation. And sometimes we need to increase our knowledge, and because we cannot cover everything internally, so it's very important to have some excellences that can be activated. I mean, at the depending on the kinds of research we want to develop. So, in principle, we have done a lot of indeed projects with IIT and trying to take advantage on their excellence, but for us was more focused on the development of medical devices. That was an interesting experience because we tried to explore some kind of technologies that were not part of our core knowledge in the company. So we explore with them new opportunities to add some specific devices in order to improve the operation, in that case, the operation associated to clinical diagnostic procedures in a radiological setup. This is because there are some needs to increase monitoring of the patients and monitoring of some operations that seems to be very simple, but are not so simple in practice, like catheterization, for example, of the patients that is needed in order to receive the contrast agents that is needed to generate the contrast in the images. And this catheterization is not very easy to do for every patient. It depends from the nature of the veins of the patients. They can be also compromises or could be not very clearly expressed, can clearly observed, like in children, for example. So catheterization is one. So we generate a new object for catheterization, some other objects to evaluate extravasations that can occur when something is not perfectly done. And we have also developed devices to monitor patients during the diagnostic procedures with aiming to predict the onset of possible adverse reactions that can occur after the individual enter in contact with the contrast agents. So because there are no any specific ideas about when this can happen. So the only way we try to do is to monitor the patients and try to predict from some vital signs if there is some changes that can generate a possible suspicion of possible adverse reaction. So things like that. And at the end, we generate a lot of intellectual properties, and we are also trying to spin out some of this technology outside, because innovation is very often not only, the development of some things internally, but is also a market of ideas that can enter and flow into an organizations and also get out in a different form, and so it's an interesting experience in any case.
It's true. So do you share some ideas? It's okay. All right. So we're going to close this session. Thank you so much for your collaborative mindset. Thank you. Okay. All right. We will moving on to individual presentation session called The Future of Personalized Medicine. Advancements in technology, particularly in biology and the health sector, have been transforming our understanding of human functioning and diseases. Examples include the role of genes in life expectancy and the use of small RNA molecules to combat vital pandemics, as demonstrated during the SARS-CoV-2 outbreak with the development of RNA-based vaccines. Italian and Japanese researchers are conducting in joint efforts laboratory studies to develop a new approach for early diagnosis and personalized patient treatment. For this session, we are honored to welcome 4 outstanding presenters. Hazuki Takahashi Center for Integrative Medical Science RIKEN, the quiet power of non-coding RNAs in shaping the genome. Stefano Gustinci, Director of the Central RNA Lab, IIT. Gianni Sciofani, Principal Investigator for the Smart Bio Interfaces Research Unit, IIT. Last is Satoshi Arai, Professor, Nano Life Science Institute, Kanazawa University. Okay, so who's the first? Okay.
So please change the slide for me. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for the introduction and this opportunity for the presentation. So I'm from RIKEN, Rikagaku Kenkyujo in Yokohama, Japan. And so I would like to introduce the collaboration project. So at the same time of the Human Genome Project in 2000, so RIKEN established the functional annotation of the mammalian genome project in 2000. So we focused on the expressed RNA catalog that was started in 2000, and now we investigating that the functional long non-coding RNA, because as he said, the RNA world is very much focused, and innovative disease medicine is in advanced. So from 2000 to 2025 now, so in the Phantom 1 to Phantom 3 project, we published the whole RNA expressed catalog to the publication with the consortium. And the one of the RNA medicine and the therapeutics is sign up. So Stefano will introduce this, the next slide. And also, we are investigating the long non-coding RNA function in the several diseases, because the mRNA translates to the protein that are only 50% of the RNA, but the rest of the RNA is non-coding RNA. And the non-coding RNA functions, the 97% are not known. So this Phantom 6 consortium, the current phase, we collaborate the 60 institutes in 23 countries, and of course with IIT. So what we are working on is to understand the long non-coding RNA function and non-coding RNA function from, for instance, the iPS to neuron differentiated samples, and also monocyte to macrophage differentiated samples. And the collaboration with IIT, we investigate the long non-coding RNA function in the breast cancer cell line and also patient-derived triple-negative breast cancer organoid and patient-derived glioblastoma stem cells, and also some mouse primary neuron function. So the complexity of molecular interactions in the chromatin is important to understand the large portion of all long non-coding RNAs, because they bind the chromatin, but for many of them, little is known about their function. So we collaborate to understand the molecular interaction in each biological samples. What we are doing is, so these technologies are developed in RIKEN and collaborate with IIT, for instance, CAGE and CAT-LabFit, and RNA-DNA interaction analysis, radical-seq, and RNA-RNA pari-seq. So these technologies are used with the collaborators, and we aim to understand the personalized medicine development. That's it.
Oh, yes. Already? No? Good? Okay. So thanks, Azuki. Because basically what you let us know that, first of all, technologies are very important. New technologies has improved our understanding of the molecular components of cells. And second, that we have a zoo of different RNA molecules of very different types, length and function. And this has been really, really the major discovery of the Phantom Consortium. And we are here to celebrate scientific collaboration between Japan and Italy. And here, just to show you, you know, in my career, in my science, actually, for 25 years, I've been collaborating part of the Phantom Consortium. And these are some of the papers that we published together. And everything started in 2000. I want to focus your attention on the transcriptional landscape of the mammalian genome that actually Azuki really pointed out as a crucial point. So that paper was really fundamental because we were coming from the first draft of a human genome, and the results of that draft was surprising because, first of all, we discovered that we have only 25,000 genes. And why this is important? Because the mouse has 25,000 genes. Because the worm has 20,000 genes. So for us, it was a little bit disturbing to have only 5,000 genes more of a worm. Second, that if you put together all 25,000 genes, actually you comprise only 5% of the genome. So it was this idea that, you know, we have no idea what the 95% of the genome does. And so 4 years later, the Phantom Consortium paper was important because it was saying, look, in addition to these 25,000 genes, there are other 35,000 genes, more than them, 35,000, that are actually existing. They are transcribed, they give rise to RNA, but they are not translated, and so-called they are the long-non-coding RNA. And the first reaction in science was, they are artifacts, or they do exist, but they don't have any biological meaning. So there was a huge run to show that this RNA was indeed important, real and important. And among this run, my laboratory was involved in finding a specific class of RNA that, that were belonging to specific part of a genome, in which you have 2 genes in the same part, but in the 2 different filaments, reads in the opposite direction. And what was happening was that you have in one direction a protein coding gene, and on the other direction you have this new long non-coding RNA that was actually having 2 parts. One part was called effector domain because it was doing the biological function, and the other part was the binding domain because it was interacting specifically with a messenger RNA that was encoding for this protein. And the function was surprising in the fact that
when you take this long non-coding RNA and you give it to a cell, the gene that is on the other filament that encodes for a protein is much highly expressed, makes a lot of more protein. So it was an activator or inducer of gene expression. And in the next 3 years, we discovered also, thanks to the work of Azuki, that confirmed some of the genes that was having the same pattern of distribution in the genome, that there are many genes that has, many long non-coding RNA that has this function, that indeed are able to increase expression of a target gene. And we call it, since the effector domain that is doing this biological activity is called SIGN, we call it SIGN-up, because through a SIGN sequence, they are able to upregulate expression of a gene target. So we actually found a new class of long non-coding RNA showing that indeed long non-coding RNA are one, real, important, and with biological function. But then we also showed that you can manipulate this long non-coding RNA because they have two domains. One that makes a function, and the other that says you have to increase gene expression only to that mRNA that I recognize in a specific manner. So we wondered why we don't change the part of the specificity and we increase expression to any gene that we want. So this is clearly, this could potentially have a lot of application because, for instance, there are these genetic diseases that are called haploinsufficiencies. Let me tell you what haploinsufficiencies are. Each of you has 2 copies of your genome, one for the mother and one for the father. In haploinsufficiencies, one of the 2 copies don't work. So once normally in a cell you have 50 molecular RNA from one genome, 50 molecular RNA for the other genome, and 50 and 50 of proteins. So you have a total of 100 molecular proteins derived from 100 molecular mRNA that derive from 2 copies of a genome. In an haploinsufficiency, you have only 1 copy that works, 50 molecules RNA, 50 molecular proteins, and this gives you disease. There are 400 different diseases that are due to this loss of function or activity in 400 different genes of a genome. And let me tell you, all 400 diseases are currently untreatable. So what we decided to do? We decided to apply these genes, this SIGN-up RNA, and adapting to each of these mRNA that belong to the gene responsible for the disease. So what does it mean? Increasing expression now, we are able from 50 molecules of mRNA to make it back to 100 because we are able to get gene expression twice as much. And in this way, they are potentially therapeutics. And this is actually what we are doing in collaboration also with the laboratory in Japan, with Piero Cannici at Japan Human Technopole, in order to then now transfer this innovation, these new molecules, into the clinics, into the patients. I don't want to go to the details of all the papers that we published together, but I want then to come to Phantom 6. Phantom 6 started a couple of years ago, but at the same time, IIT has developed the RNA initiative, starting in 2018, and right now the RNA flagship. It is a major program in the IIT strategic plan. Well, more than 20 labs are focusing their scientific interest into RNA, studying long non-coding RNA, so these 35,000 genes that I told you, and also trying to adapt this long non-coding RNA to make new drugs, new therapeutics. And so this was a great opportunity to bring IIT into the Phantom 6 consortium. And this is just to give you some example of our collaboration. Gian Gaetano Tartaglia is a computational biologist of RNA. What he does, he tries to identify the proteins that bind long non-coding RNA and how they modify the chromatins of the status of the genome and the genome activity. And then there is Francesco Nicasso, that is doing exactly the same type of work, studying how long non-coding RNA is modifying chromatin activity, but where in triple-negative breast cancer, in order to find therapeutic targets, RNA therapeutic targets. Same thing, Daphne Campilli di Gianmartino, that is doing exactly the same approach, long non-coding RNA, chromatin, changing gene expression of a cell, but this time applied to glioma cells, in order to identify what are the crucial long non-coding RNA that regulate the activity and makes a glioma cell a glioma cell. Then Irene Farabella that is doing exactly the same thing, but from a computational way. So just predicting the interaction of long-non-coded RNA with chromatin. And I close the loop, going back to Remo Sanchez. This is actually trying to identify new interactor between messenger RNA and synapse non-coding RNA. So again, we can make, thanks to the enormous data set of Phantom, discoveries about long non-coding RNA. However, I want just to spend 2 minutes more in order to, so why all this is important? So Friday, together with Giorgio Metta and the president of IIT, Galateri, we will be in Aosta. Valle d'Aosta is a small region in the northwest of Italy. And we are going to have a press conference because we are showing the results of a new genomics center that we established some years ago. And the result is that we have been sequenced 5,000 genome of Valle d'Aosta inhabitants, of people with Parkinson's disease, or people with cancer, or with young kids with neurodevelopmental disorder. What we have understood about after all this sequencing? But first of all, we understood that there is a lot that we don't know. Okay? Like after sequencing the first draft of the human genome, we have no idea what the 95% of the genome was doing. Right now, we are a little bit more, a little bit better, but there are still a lot of things that we don't understand. There is a lot of information there that we are not able to read. Second, that diseases are highly heterogeneous. And I think this is at the basis of the concept of personalized medicine. And this is also a very important concept for developing drug in an economically sustainable manner, because there is no more of a possibility to have a drug that fits all. But you have to create subgroup. You have to stratify patients according to their characteristic, and you have to develop a drug for that particular group of patients. So, but this is clearly a very difficult task. How you confront this? And one answer that I think when we're talking about vision for the medicine of the future, one crucial aspect in the vision of medicine of the future is democratization of genomics. That means that every single individual that goes into the hospital must have a genome sequenced. Because that information, first of all, genome is a genome for a lifetime. The information is always there. And the doctor that is worried about single disease can just ask information about a small part of the genome. Or in 10 years from now, that we will know much more about the information that is out there, actually we can go back to the genome and analyze it again. Second, and what we have to do, and this is one way to create progress, because it's to put knowledge that we already know at the service of the citizen. And we have to combine this information of genomic analysis with developing RNA technology, RNA graph. So the medicine of the future is exactly this, will be for who is able to combine genomic analysis and RNA technology. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I use the PowerPoint slide on switch to the? Okay, I'm Satoshi Arai from Kanazawa University. Thank you for having me this session today. I would like to talk about some totally different topic about nanotechnologies. Let me share our research activities, and including the collaboration study with IIT. So here is the slide, I always start my presentation. This is a quote from the Hippocrates, who is ancient Greek, 2,000 years ago. So I read this quote, let me read it briefly. Those diseases which medicines do not cure, iron cures, iron means the surgeries, and those which iron cannot cure, fire cures. In the end, he concluded to give me the power to create a fever, I shall cure any diseases. So I read this quote, and I was also surprised to to find that we came up with same idea. But in our case, instead of the fire, we are going to use the heat. So we truly believe that the heating technology can open up the new biotechnology, including the clinical applications. Let me show you that. And our laboratory has been developing the thermal engineering technique that allows to measure and control the temperatures at the nano and micro scales, especially for the single cell levels, like subcellular scales, the organelle scales. Then, because we are chemists, using the chemistry approach, we are developing some thermal engineering technique. Then we are naming it the cell thermal engineering. This is our unique concept in our laboratory. By the way, so how can we measure the temperature at the single cells? I guess you have never thought the temperature at the single cells. Our body comprises the tens of the trillion of cells, but we have never thought that the single cell temperatures. Then, for example, we can find the IR thermography at the airport that telling us the 37, 38 degrees Celsius of your body temperature. But IR thermography cannot reach the single cell spatial resolution. It's not possible. How about the thermocouple thermometers? The conventional thermocouple thermometer. It's kind of difficult to dip the thermocouple thermometer into the compartmental space in the cells. So how can we do that? So we have been developing the very tiny size, the optical biosensors. And we have been developing the molecular size, the temperature sensor, using the chemical dyes. Because of the size, which is the 20 times smaller than diameter of the hairs, so it can approach the targeted organelles easily. And the working principle is quite simple. As the temperature increases, and then optical signal, the fluorescent signals, the decline linearly. Using this calibration curve, we stain the tissue samples or cell samples with our dyes. Then, under microscopic observation, so we can estimate how much temperature increment happens for the representative organelle, such as the lysosome, the right panels, like a plasma membrane, mitochondria, nucleus, endoplasmic reticulum, and so on. So we call it the organelle thermometries. Then, what is the practical applications? So let me show you the two examples. So we have the challenge in the obesity, the treatment. This is a big problem across the world. And then we mammalians have the unique heat production systems through the burning fat. So especially that procedures take place in the brown adipocyte. We have the brown adipocyte around the neck, the burning fat. And then key player is the mitochondria. If you look at here, this is the mitochondria. And then the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cells, as well as the heating source in our bodies. We actually measure the mitochondrial temperature during the thermogenesis, during the heat production. Then we found that the mitochondrial temperature is a couple degrees Celsius warmer than other places. Actually, the mitochondria function as a heater in living cells. What is the future directions? So we are thinking that technology extended to the nutrient screening for burning fat. So actually, we visualize, for example, the burning procedure in the real time. So if you look at here, so this is the actual movie for the burning fat. Then the visualization technique helps us to discover the nutrient drugs for promoting the burning fat in future. So by the way, actually there are no available the super nutrients and drug for promoting the burning fat. So let me share the important message from the Hippocrates again. He said, what is the best medicine for human being? How do you think of that? So what is the best medicine for human being? He concluded the exercise, the walking. So the exercise is the best medicine for the human being. Still, there's the truth, remain the truth for the over 2,000 years. So until we get some good nutrients, so please do the exercise more to keep your health. So this is our message from this slide. Then let me switch to another application using our organelle thermometries, which is the awesome collaboration with the Gianni groups next to me. Then we are always collaborating with the IIT group in Italy. And our institute is selected as the World Premier International Research Center Initiative, the WPIs. And our mission is to develop some nanotechnology for direct observation and manipulation of cellular events. Then maybe later on, Gianni will introduce some their technologies. Then always, how does our collaboration come about? Then they are developing some heating technology for the clinical application. Then we always contribute to what's going on at the cellular levels when they apply some heating technologies. So understanding of the cellular activities on the nano and micro scale is quite important for further development of the effective therapeutic ways. So we have the good relationship with him, then it could be very good platform for generating the future clinical therapeutic ways. So for the rest of the time, so let me show you our tips, the technology for other point. Then we also are developing some photothermal stuff, photothermal dyes. What is a photothermal dyes? The photothermal dyes that can absorb the near-infrared light and convert the light energy into heat. So this is a photothermal dyes. So because we are synthetic chemists, we have been synthesizing some several dyes with having some chemical stabilities, high thermal conversion efficiency, and low cell toxicities. Upon the light illumination, so we can create some heat spot by near-infrared light laser. So lastly, let me show you what is the critical applications. So using the photothermal dyes, these days, the lipid nanoparticles, lipid and other names are liposomes, the lipid nanoparticle is quite common for the carrier for the mRNA delivery, like vaccinations. Then we are also using the lipid nanoparticles. But distinguishable point, so we embedded some photothermal dye into the lipid membranes. Then our concept is like shine the near-infrared light, and create the heat spot in the lipid bilayers. And then we can change the fluidity of the lipid membranes, resulting in the release of the bioactive compound, release of the encapsulated payload. That means, so we can control the release of the drug, timing of the release of the drug by using the near-infrared laser. For example, when we encapsulate the acetylcholines, the neurotransmitter, so we can deliver the acetylcholines for the targeted place, like brains. Another case, so if we can encapsulate anti-cancer drugs, so we can deliver the anti-cancer drug for targeted tumors. Both the project, the progressing, let me share the right panels, only right panels. So when we encapsulate the anti-cancer drug here, they shine the light, and then, so for the targeted tumors, and we can deliver the anti-cancer drug for the tumors. Then comparing the control, comparing with the only drug administrations, so our technology achieved the downsizing of the tumors effectively. This is our recent progress. Then let me wrap up my talk. So here's the future perspective. Now we are trying to do more the specific heating for specific organella, like nucleus heating or mitochondrial heating. Then we can create some tiny heat spot in living cells. This is quite analogous to the Japanese traditional therapeutic way, like OQ. Then we are creating some OQ in the cells. Recently, we launched some startup companies naming the cell Moxa. This is the company name. Based on that technology, so we are thinking for more clinical application, collaborating with a medical doctor. They are using the catheters or endoscope, having the near-infrared laser to deliver the near-infrared light. So let me say thanks to all our members and the awesome collaborator, Gianni. So thank you very much.
Good Good morning, everyone. Yes, if we can switch to my presentation. Okay. So, thanks for the opportunity to be here to present a bit of our work. I am Gianni Ciofani from IIT, and namely I am the coordinator of the Center for Materials Interfaces. That is one of the IIT center that is spread along the Italian territory, and we are located in Pontedera. That is a little town close to Pisa, most famous for the Vespa motorbike, if you are familiar with it. What we are doing in our lab, we are essentially focused on three main research activities. The first one is concerning the so-called smart nanomedicine. So we are exploiting smart properties of materials at the nanoscale in order to prepare a carrier for drug delivery or delivery of therapeutic agents with a particular focus on the central nervous system and on brain cancer. So we are interested, for example, in magnetic nanoparticles, pH-reactive nanoparticles, light-responsive nanoparticles, piezoelectric materials, and so on. And I will show you one specific example about this today. Then we are working also on the so-called microphysiological systems, or traditionally named organ on chips, in order to develop advanced in vitro models that can represent a bridge between traditional cell cultures and in vivo experiments. And also in this case, we are especially focused on the central nervous system and on the blood-brain barrier, that is that anatomical functional barrier that is protecting our brain from the external environment. And then we are pretty active also on space nanomedicine. That is the application of all the tools and the materials that we are developing also for the health of astronauts and for the health of a future human mission on outer space. And in the framework of this topic, we performed 4 experimental campaigns also on board of the International Space Station. Coming back to smart nanomaterials, smart nanoparticles, we are strictly working on the personalization of these nanovectors, in particular concerning cancer therapy. We are, let's say, personalizing these nanoparticles under a technological point of view. And in particular, cancer is a very specific and personal disease, and each patient we can say that present a completely different disease with respect to each other. So it is very, very important to develop also carriers that are specifically designed along one specific patient. So our idea is to exploit the fingerprint of a specific cancer in order to personalize the nanoparticles that we are developing to carry the drug. And one of these examples is represented by the exploitation of cellular membranes that are coming from a cancer cell in order to decorate the surface of the nanoparticles. In this way, the cancer cells are recognizing the nanoparticles that are we injecting like something that are belonging to them, thanks to the so-called homotypic targeting. And in this way, we can achieve a better targeting of the particles and so of the drug towards the cancer of a specific patient. As I mentioned, we are working with a different kind of nanocarriers, of nanoparticles, and in particular, we are interested on the physical properties of these nanoparticles. So we want something that is active, that is not a simple passive carrier of a chemotherapy drug or a contrast agent, but the particle itself, it is performing some actions, like a kind of nanorobot. And in this vision, we are particularly active in the exploitation of this class of nanomaterials that are represented by nanoparticles made of melanin or polydopamine. And we are working a lot, and with the collaboration also with the group of Kanazawa University concerning this kind of nanoparticles. Why these nanoparticles are really smart? Because they present plenty of interesting physical applications. First of all, they are strongly antioxidants. They are behaving as strong scavengers of reactive oxygen species. And the reactive oxygen species oxidative stress is a common hallmark for plenty of disease, from simple inflammation to cancer to neurodegenerative disorders. So to have some artificial vitamins and nanotechnological vitamins can represent a powerful tool towards all those pathologies that present oxidative stress as a common hallmark. Then these nanoparticles, of course, can be loaded with drugs, so they can behave as traditional nanocarriers for drug delivery. And then, and we arrive to the point in common with the Satoshi, we are able to produce heat. They are able to locally increase the temperature when they are illuminated with light has specific wavelength, in particular in the near-infrared region of the light spectrum. Why near-infrared? Because most of the cells and tissues are relatively transparent to these wavelengths, so we are able to reach and to trigger some specific action just when we are internalizing nanoparticles inside cells. So we can exploit this increment of temperature, of course, to perform hyperthermia and, for example, to kill cancer cells. But if we are maintaining the increment of temperature within physiological ranges, we can just adjust some functionalities inside the cells and to switch on some specific action without harmful effects to the cells. And this was indeed the work that we performed in collaboration with the Kanazawa University and with the group of Satoshi. So we exploited melanin-like nanoparticles, polydopamine nanoparticles, illuminated with a near-infrared laser in order to foster different actions inside different kind of cells and also inside whole organisms. So, for example, we were able to trigger action inside the muscle cells to promote contraction, or we were able to trigger action potential in neurons, and even acetylcholine, so neurotransmitter release in Drosophila, in the fruit fly, in insects. So this is, for example, what is happening when we are incubating polydopamine nanoparticles with neurons, and then we are illuminating all the system with a near-infrared light. We are able to trigger neuronal action, and so to trigger the functionality of neurons. Or even more interesting in muscle cells, here you can see in green the nanoparticles, and then we are switching on the laser. As you can see from this small video, we are able to trigger the contraction machinery, the sarcomeric machinery inside the muscle cells, and so to promote the contraction of muscle cells without any drug and without any chemical reaction, but by simply exploiting the physical properties of our particles with the laser. And so by increasing the temperature, we are able to activate this action inside muscle. And then at the end, in ex vivo system, in the brains of Drosophila insects, again by incubating the brain slice with the polydopamine nanoparticles and by illuminating with the non-invasive near-infrared laser, we are able to trigger the release of a neurotransmitter, in this case acetylcholine, without any harmful effects to the rest of the cell. So we are really convinced that these kind of particles that are biocompatible, they are biodegradable, so they are fully organic, can indeed represent an exceptional and amazing intracellular nanotransducer, a sort of nanorobots that can trigger and finely tune the functionality of the cells in a non-invasive manner. So I would like to conclude this brief example with a big thank you to my group in Pontedera and of course to all of you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much for excellent presentation. We are going to close this session. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so I found Italy and Japan shares a lot of interest. It's like a social problem and research ideas and cultural ideas. So it's really happy for me to moderate this session. So I'll pass this stage to Fabrizio. Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Aki. I invite on stage also Laura Cancedda, Luca Berrondini, and Matteo Lanfranchi, please. You can give him a round of applause, eh? Thank you. Okay, we're a bit far from there, so I will sit next to you. I think it's better. Okay, so now we have a session with 3 senior scientists of IIT, and the idea is to tell the story of, of their initiatives, also their startups initiatives. So I will begin asking Laura to tell us about her background, scientific background. It should be on already. And how the idea sparkled to move towards the market, let's put it that way.
Okay. So, hi everybody, I'm very happy to be here and to share my story. So I start with a very academic background. So I did a university in my hometown, I did medicinal chemistry. And then I moved to Pisa, where there is this Scuola Normale Superiore, which is really an academic sort of university. It's called, I think that in English is translated in honor university. So the person studying there does the normal university and then extra exams, and they have to have a very high degrees to stay in the Scuola Normale. So very academic. And there I did neuroscience. So I study how the brain develops and what can cause things to go in the good direction and in the bad direction. And then I moved to the States, and there I continued to do what is called basic science. So really the science done for the sake of knowledge. So to try just to understand better how things work without any reasons, any things that you want to do done in the real world, nothing. And then I went back to IIT, and there I opened my lab, and I started to do more of like translational neuroscience. So that neuroscience that tells you a little bit more about disease and potential, what they're called targets. So potential biological processes that can be, changed to try to rescue the symptoms of different disorders. And then at the IIT, because of the mission of IIT, that is to, with the knowledge that we generate to change something, I was a little bit under pressure to do that. I didn't like it at the beginning, but it turned out to be very nice indeed. And so there, my research really changed a little bit and moved toward translation. So from basic to translation, with the idea to do something eventually one day for the patients. And this is when I met Marco Di Vivo. He is a chemist. He does drug discovery for a living. I do neuroscience. He does drug discovery. And so based on my research that showed that there was a particular target, it's a chloride transporter that regulates the brain activity that is affected in many disorders. I studied Down syndrome. My original study demonstrated that there was a diuretic that could be, it's called repurposed. So used not as a diuretic, but as a drug that could rescue cognitive impairment in mouse model of Down syndrome. And so we demonstrated that there was this possibility, but this drug had a very strong diuretic effect. So together with the De Vivo lab, he does computer-aided drug design. So he also uses artificial intelligence to design molecules better. He designed a molecule that potentially was not diuretic. We tested it in the lab. And so we developed these new classes of compounds, new molecules able to rescue core symptoms, cognitive impairment in a mouse model of Down syndrome. But it was not diuretic, so super, super nice. And because he convinced me that, academic research is great, but it doesn't give you the possibility to make money, and so to push your compounds toward development, we patented, thanks also to the IIT Technology Transfer Office. And so based on this patent, we were able to launch our startup, which is called Yama Therapeutics. That's not a Japanese name, but it sounds like Japanese. And this allowed us to push forward our initially basic research, then translational research into something that potentially will one day have, first of all, the ability to rescue core symptoms in a number of brain disorders, and then, of course, also to affect the market. So this is how everything started.
Thank you, Laura. Pretty amazing. But all the stories are pretty amazing. So we go to Luca now. No, Luca is on this side. So, Luca, you have a different background, so please tell us also your story. And like for Laura, meeting also another scientist with different ideas and different approach, was the sparkle how it happened for you with your corporate, with your company?
Yes, thank you everybody, and great pleasure to be here today. I have a different background than Laura. I'm an engineer from EPFL from Switzerland that moved to Italy actually. So
immigrant.
An immigrant, yeah. So I joined IIT in 2007, and I had the chance actually to start my own lab there. I was pretty young, and my first passion was in robotics, and that's why I started engineering. And I've been working in a robotic company in Switzerland. Then I had a master at Caltech in US, where I started working with one of the pioneers of microelectrode arrays for interfacing neural systems. And that was then what brought me back to research, from industry back to research. And then I joined IIT. I started my lab developing innovative technology for interfacing the brain, the nervous system. And the idea there was to basically scale up the number of electrode sites we can actually use in first in vitro and nowadays in vivo in the nervous system. And why? Because actually the dynamics that the brain expresses is unique. It's something we do not understand scientifically. It's a big challenge. And we need to build up technologies, as we heard this morning with optical systems, also with bioelectronics to interface the nervous system. Secondly, to understand how it works. Secondly, because we have robotics, we have technologies that are amazing in terms of degree of freedoms they can express. We will see later also what's done in RIAP, actually. But one of the limitations there is really the signal quality we can catch, how we interface with the peripheral nervous system to these machines, right? So also avatars needs to be improved in terms of control systems. So there, this is the other direction where neuroelectronics can bring value in in technologies. And brain-machine interfaces are a tool, actually, to perform science and to understand how the nervous system works. So that's the motivation why we move into neuroscience. I was welcome in the neuroscience department at that time, and now it's a heterogeneous environment with scientists with different backgrounds. And being an engineer there is fascinating because it's the opportunity to apply technology and build up new ideas to face the challenges in life tech domain. And I started a company because actually I started two companies. The last one actually is the one that is bringing to the worldwide research community the technology we built in IIT. It's an implantable technology with thousands of electrodes that can monitor activity in animal models, but and in a very high resolution. And this is now distributed by 2 US-based companies, also available in Japan, actually, as a technology. So what's next? This company is also the opportunity to bring this technology on humans, and that's why Corticale was built, not only to make this technology available, but also to open up to the opportunity of validating the technology, producing it in a quality control environment as needed for medtech technologies, and start with clinical trial targeting neurological disorders. We know that, we heard this morning, neurological disorders are affecting an increasing number of people worldwide, 1/3 almost. The burden is increasing, and BCIs are an opportunity to let these people regain dignity in our society and maybe come back to work after, because that's another challenge. So,
grazie Luca. I added just a little bit of information to both stories because we have been involved as technology transfer. And Laura is in preclinical, correct? No, where are you now?
Preclinical.
I lifted up for you. I lifted up for you.
So we moved
Smash it.
We moved to phase 1 clinical trial, which is the clinical trial that everybody needs to run whenever you launch a new drug in healthy volunteers. So a drug, before being able to rescue any symptom, needs to be safe. And this is what you test in the phase 1 clinical trial.
Okay.
So phase 1 is over.
On the less social impact side, how much did you raise so far? Because that's an information as well.
This is also a good point. So for Italian standard, it's a lot
of money.
For United States, less, I'm not sure. But
We'll
Japan
get there.
is
We'll get there.
27 million euros.
27 million euros. So a round of applause for both the volunteers and the 27 million euros. And Luca, when the Corticale was actually born because you already had a captive market on over labs around the world asking for it. Can you please tell us a short story about it?
Yeah, that's coming from research. So the network of scientific research is it's pretty large, and I had already contact with several companies, and these companies were actually asking to be able to commercialize the technology we have been developing in the lab, and that's how it started. And Corticale is an opportunity also for a researcher in my lab to stay in Italy and work in this company over the next years. So that's also another motivation of why we started this company.
Grazie. And last but not least, we have Matteo, who's going to tell us a bit his background. He's the younger principal investigator representing here IIT today, and the background and the challenges for your technologies.
Thank you Fabrizio. So, well, I graduated in mechatronic engineering, first of all, so, very much development of robotics hardware. Then I started a PhD at the University of Sheffield in collaboration with IIT, so there I could study more in detail the application of robotic technology. And then after that, back then it was say hardcore mechatronic engineering applied to robotics and manipulation. And then we founded this lab, Rehab Technologies, about 10 years back with my colleague. And it was really interesting to start applying, our technology, robotic technology, to some specific application. And these applications are wearable robotics for healthcare, which means we have also some demos later, as you will see. Prosthetic technologies, so, which can be used for people who lost their limb, and is particularly relevant for people who had accidents, but also for people who are, you know, we saw the presentation this morning of Giorgio, right? I mean, we are really much aging, the population is aging, and of course also there's going to be a trend in increase in amputation due to diabetes. So yeah, we are here to offer a solution for them. We're talking about amputation to the upper and lower limb, so we have both solutions for, you know, both upper and lower limb. And also we develop exoskeletons. When we talk about exoskeletons, we treat other different conditions, such as spinal cord injuries, stroke, TBI, traumatic brain injuries. And so these are machines that can be worn by the patient and can actually be used for doing motor therapy. So we work mostly for that. And in general, the challenges are that you know, we have to increase the usability of these devices because, as we know, you know, robotics is notoriously, you know, complicated technology, and so we have to make it easy to use to the people. Otherwise, they won't use it. And at the other side, there is cost, right? So, of course, also we know because of the complexity, robotics is not so cheap, and so we have to find a ways to develop technology which is sustainable also from the economic point of view. Going a little bit more into the technological challenges of each application, Luca said it right. So we have to decode the human intention and translate that into motion. And with the current technology, this is really struggling because we have, for example, if we make the example of the upper limb, we have many joints to move, right? In the hand, in the wrist, and in the arm in general, we have many joints there. And we have very few channels to control them. So this means that when we have either a amputation at the radius or the humerus level, even worse, we have seen some videos before, it becomes complicated to understand the human intention and translate that into the motion, right? So we have few sensors which need to be translated into many motions of the prosthesis. And actually, artificial intelligence can help us out in that. For the lower limb, we have a little bit more difficulties in also safety, because other than understanding the human intention, of course, we do, you know, thousands of steps a day, and therefore even a very tiny percentage of failure in the controllers means that people will fall, and people actually still fall, so we have to make them very robust. And from the exoskeleton point of view, again, also there is usability, miniaturization of the devices, reduce of size of the devices, and also, you know, solving also very practical things, such as, for example, when we're talking about clinical use, these devices get into the clinic and they don't have to disrupt the typical workflow of a physical therapist or physiatrist. So they have to be very practical, very easy to use for them as well, and also, you know, time saving, because, you know, their time is very limited, and so there we have to offer solutions that can be easily deployed on the patient and do not disrupt the workflow. And so these are the main challenges we're working on. Very often it's really practical, and you know, lots of communication and dialogue. Also, Giuseppe before was mentioning that is very important to understand practical needs and try to solve them and address them, which is not easy actually.
Thank you, Matteo. I had a little bit of trivia also for Matteo's case. The rehab lab in IIT was born because we had a joint laboratory, which is one of our way to cooperate with large corporations. In this case with INAIL, which is known to Italians, which is a large public insurer for workers, basically, for injured workers. And they've been investing so far in our research about 40 million euros in over 10 years of cooperation. So it was born because they realized at some stage that none of the prosthetic parts were actually made in Italy. So they want to develop also that kind of solution made in Italy and use our knowledge, and the lab grew from 3 or 4 people to 40, I think. So it's a good example also of public-public cooperation with social impact and also commercial aim, because we'll see soon that also Matteo has his own startup on the way. So we go for the second round, where the question for Laura will be slightly different, because obviously being a startupper of some sort, you will have suggestions for newcomers. But I think that in your case, we should also consider the woman factor. So young women researchers, what they should look for when they decide to go for a startup.
Okay, so that's a difficult one. It could be a long one if I were to tell you what not to do. I have a very long list.
Okay, you write a book.
Okay. So let's go for what to do. So I would say, like, in general, if I had to choose, like, one thing that is very important when you change from academia to business or whatever, a company, is really, you're gonna, this idea that you're gonna have to deal with many different people, including investors, that can be very different from you in the way you think. And you will have, I guess, to understand that you will, I mean, this is going to be a very long journey, and you're going to be on the same page with them, not all the time. So you will have to need to learn that, for example, at the beginning, everybody gets along very well before starting the startup. But right after, then the path may diverge, and you will be said that everybody has the same goal, which is the success of the company. So we are all on the same page, but that's not true, because it really depends on how you define the success of the company. So for a person of the academia, maybe my drug goes to the patients, and from people from the investors would be, we're selling as soon as possible, giving a 5 per reward, return. So I guess the first suggestion would be that in order to make the decision quickly, you need to have clear what is the ethic and what is the goal of the company. And if it diverges, you just have to say it loud and to find a common way to do things. Just one example. In the company, you will have budget for the people and budget for activities. And then would be then you need to hire people. And then for me would be, okay, but we're going to pay them as much as people in my lab, because, I have this ethic that everybody needs to be the same. And then for people like investors, that would be, no, we're going to pay them like the minimum because we need to go further. So nobody is wrong. I'm right and they're right. If we fix the ethic of the company, which is we need to make money tomorrow, then there's only one choice: we're going to pay them less. So it's very important to choose and to decide together what is the ethic of the company. First thing. The second one, specifically for women, I think that one of the most difficult things as a woman is to make yourself to be heard. Sometimes, and I guess that we can relate with some of you, is that you have this impression that you speak, you say something, and then they just don't listen. It's like those whistle.
This
for
happens
dogs,
also at home,
right?
though.
No. This is like whistle for dogs that only dogs can listen, and like I would say something and you would listen, but they don't. And then at the very end, they come up and they say, oh, I had an idea. I think that we could do exactly what you said. I'm like, what? So my thing is that you need an ally, possibly a man, because some of them, they do hear. At least they know some words, and so you can teach them the other. And so you need an ally. And then if you need to say something, you say, can you say that for me? It works.
Grazie. Thank you very much. I think deserves an applause, this strategy. Now, I can ask Luca about the same trouble, but two things. One, you are a serial entrepreneur by statistics. So obviously you learn more tricks because you have two startups. So your, do's and don'ts, so at least one or two. And one is from Laura, because I think this is a common thread to all the IIT startups, the ethical level. The ethical level we keep also when we do business is we don't just look for a partner. We just don't look for money. We look for the right partner for the right money, which is, I believe also for teams to be successful, so is a need at the beginning. But I know you have experience also in that, so if you can please give us a little hint on that. Thanks.
No, I think that what Laura was saying is not only for women, it's in general. As a scientist, I think that in company we have to find a way to express our values that are not necessarily the same as the partners we are bringing into our journey. That's a key point. And ethics is really important for the science we do, at least in my lab, I think also for my colleagues. And where to apply the technology we are bringing in. That's a key point. And this is something we have been discussing a lot before starting our company Corticale, because we are targeting brain-computer interfaces, and we know that the perspective of applying this technology also for a healthy person is actually concrete, is something real. So we actively worked on the statute directly to limit the use of this technology to people with disease. So the company mission is to build up this technology to deploy that into applications where people affected by neurological disease can profit from it. So defining well also where you want to bring the technology in the society nowadays is a key aspect to think about even before starting the company itself. I know that this is probably not so common, but I think for us at least it's something extremely important, because the potential impact of a technology entering society can be devastating. So we have to try to anticipate what, with the limit we have, of course, but we have to try to think about how this technology will be impacting our society.
Grazie, Luca. Now we have three very different startups. In some cases are more companies than startups today, and different levels also of commitment in time. And Matteo is the last one who incorporated. So I want to ask you your experience as an entrepreneur. But if you can show us what you're actually thinking to bring to the market with some of your colleagues who came to show. So if you can please come over, guys, and show us something.
So we have Andrea coming over with the foot prosthesis. He's using it on the right foot. So we were just talking before about cost effectiveness, and here we have two, say, very good examples of it. So we have bionic foot and a bionic hand that we see over there. They both just use one motor to realize many degrees of freedom, and so of course they simplify a lot the complexity of the devices, while at the same time keeping the effectiveness of the device. Niccolò Boccardo, team leader.
Go.
Of a few.
It's like a catwalk in this moment, but
yeah. So it's just showing off of a couple of examples of technologies that we are spinning off right now with our startup Ars Bionica. So you see the hand really adapts to the shape of the object. So it's very natural, very effective, very firm grasp as well, if we like. And yeah, these are a couple of examples. We are now working on the easing the interface of the devices. We were talking about it before. Neural interfaces are really key, as also Luca was mentioning before in this. And also the role of artificial intelligence is very important for understanding the human intention and translating that into motion. And I would say we just recently incorporated and founded the startup, but what I can say for getting the technology to the clinic, which is the first step, right, to get to the market. And first of all, you have to solve a problem, right? the clinicians or patients might have, and this is the first step. Second step is that you have to do it also effectively. So, it has to actually be clinically effective on one side, and also at the other side at a competitive cost, because otherwise the solution wouldn't sell. And for doing that, luckily we have some new tools, such as the HTA, so the Health Technology Assessment, that we are currently using. Is a method for trying to understand the clinical effectiveness on one side, but also trying to understand the impact on the clinic, organizationally wise and also cost wise. So you can actually determine if the technology, is worth the money, right? That the clinician or the patient pays for. What is really fundamental, what we have seen so far that is really important is, always keeping good dialogue with the stakeholders. It could be patients, clinicians, physical therapists, physiatrists, or I don't know, prosthetics and orthotists. You always have to keep a dialogue, because very often we think about solutions that are not really solving a specific problem. Of course, I mean, the foundation for innovation is good technology, but at the same time, you also have to be able to address an actual need, and the easiest way is just to talk to them, right? Finally, last point is also all the regulatory aspects are really fundamental here, because they validate the safety of our technology, and this is needed before you even go to talk to a clinician, because otherwise, if it isn't safe, we're talking about robots, they can harm. So they have to be safe certified. So then you can get there, and they can validate it for you. Well, it's a collaboration,
sort of, yes.
say. And then finally, yes, when you go to talk to companies, the first thing they ask is, cost is always there, and also, is it certified? So this is also something that we need. Fabrizio before said about our funding agency, which is ENAIL, which luckily supports also this sort of activities, but usually research projects do not support these activities. So it's good also to think about maybe new funding schemes for supporting regulatory aspects, which are really fundamental in translational technology.
Okay, these were 3 of the 40 startups that IIT actually has seen coming out in its activity 20 years along now. Obviously, if you have funding for any of these investments, they're all ready to raise their hands to raise more money, not only them, also their colleagues back home. So I would like to thank Laura, Luca, Matteo, Nicolò, and Andrea for their time. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Commissioner Battani, for having us, and also Deputy Sgarbi for having us. The structure has been really great. Your guys here are fantastic. Thank you guys over there, all the technicians and everybody helping us. And unless Giorgio wants to say something to say goodbye, we thank also Professor Ishiguro, and we hope to see you next time and in Italy if you come over. Thank you very much.
We also have the demos now. And we also have
you can still go to the table
to
and test with yourself with the prosthetic arms and legs and whatever. Thank you very much. We still have time for a few questions if you wish to ask questions.